Hello and welcome to another edition of TSL Talk. Unfortunately, Adam Smith can't be here today after eating too many Easter eggs and coming out in a severe case of acne. So we've brought in a professional, Damian McIver from ABC News. Damian, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Brett.
What's your initial thoughts on the season? Obviously, we had three games for the season opener and now the first round out of the way.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch. I think it's been reasonably predictable. The teams that we expect to be strong, your Launcestons and Burnies, have done well. The teams we expected to struggle haven't got on the winners list yet. But what I've enjoyed watching, I suppose, is the increased competitiveness from the likes of South Launceston going down to Lauderdale on the weekend. We didn't expect them to win, but to get within 5 goals on Lauderdale's home ground, I think that's a pretty decent result. And also North Launceston pushing the defending premiers Launceston all the way up at York Park as well. Just a 10-point margin there. So hopefully that's a sign that those teams that have been either mid-range or down the bottom in South Launceston's case are starting to move up.
Yeah, you touched on North Launceston. They actually led the Blues at three-quarter time, and just going from memory, I don't think the Northern Bombers even got close to the Blues all last season, so that's a positive sign.
Yeah, and it's difficult to read early in the season where Launceston's at. I watched when they played Morningside in Queensland the week before, and they looked okay. They got beaten but showed some good signs. Whether that's had an impact on how they played on the weekend, I'm not sure, but still expect them to be a pretty strong team.
Adam Derbyshire's come back on the team, and I think he kicked 3 goals 7 against North Launceston. So once he gets a kicking boot on, he's going to be a very dangerous focal point for them, and another one because they've already got Brian Finch up there.
And it's not going to take long. I mean, we saw what Derbyshire did. I guess back when it was the NTFL, kicked mountains of goals for Launceston. Back in those days, Brian Finch was a half-forward flanker. So interesting to see what sort of setup they go with once he gets firing.
Yeah, and probably the standout performances so far have come from Burnie. They've, we expect them to do a job on Devonport, which they did on the weekend, but they also took down North Hobart by 10 goals in the season opener.
Yeah, they've recruited well in the off-season. Vin Ponsonby, who played some really good football for Devonport a couple of years back, terrific to see him back at the elite competition, and they're one of those clubs, Burnie. Once they get a bit of momentum, they're very hard to stop. We saw that last year. I don't think too many teams are going to go to West Park this year and come away with a win.
And of course you throw in Russell Robertson, who's going to play 5 games as a fly-in, fly-out player, and it just gives them another focal point up forward.
It certainly does, and I can imagine plenty of Docker supporters getting along to watch those games because he is an entertainer.
We've all had high expectations for Lauderdale over the weekend, and they've certainly, they've got 2 wins to start with, which is nothing to be sneezed at, but probably not playing at the level we thought so far.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to read it. Like, if we got a little bit excited given what Lauderdale produced last year when they almost made the finals, and then they've recruited well, and we almost expect them to be a top 5 team this year. And yeah, look, they've won both their games, but yeah, haven't been all that impressive. Interesting to see. I mean, Darren Winter likes to sort of talk them down a little bit, but eventually those expectations need to be met, and I think they do need to make finals this year to, I guess, justify where they're at in the competition.
And as you mentioned, South Lonnie, they've got a new coach in Mitch Thorpe, who's looked like he's in really good nick. He's fit, he's firing. He played really well on the weekend at centre forward. And they've got Bart McCulloch back from the AFL, who I was down there and, to be honest, he bugger all, to be fair to him. But once he gets right, they're going to have something to really kick to.
Well, when you look across the competition, there's not too many really quality big blokes. South Lonnie have now got a couple. Throw Mitch Hills into the mix. Joby Harper, who's a young guy, but from all reports played quite well. And they've got a good crop of younger players who have been there for a while, and look, they've experienced some absolute drubbings over the last few years. They'll be really enjoying, I think, going into a game. Look, they didn't win, but being competitive, and look, they'll be, I think, a lot tougher proposition than what we've seen in the last 3 years.
And we'll probably learn a little bit more about Lauderdale this Friday night when they take on Glenorchy, who started well against Clarence, but led by 4 goals at quarter time, but eventually went down by 40 points.
Yeah, big match for both clubs, I reckon, that one. Glenorchy, very different team to the Glenorchy we've seen in previous years. A lot younger, under a new coach, Ben Beams, and I reckon we'd expect to see that inconsistency, not just between games, but also within games. Started well and then faded. Lauderdale, that's almost a must-win for them. I almost think early in the season, just to let everyone know that they are actually the team that we think they are. That they are a finals contender. Again, going to a match like that as favourites, I don't reckon they've gone to KG5 before as favourites in the state league.
Yeah, good call, Damian. And you talked about predictability before. We probably saw that a little bit on North Hobart Oval, where the Demons had a fairly comfortable win over Hobart.
Yeah, the game that never really reached any great heights. I mean, it was good conditions, nice crowd, good Friday clash, plenty of interest with a lot of ex-Hobart players lining up for the Demons. Plenty of words that were exchanged as well, which was interesting. But difficult one to read. North Hobart beaten heavily by Burnie first up, won comfortably against Hobart, but I don't think they played any great footy. I think Lance Spalding will look at it and say, yes, we've got to win, that's important, but we'll need to play a fair bit better than that to be competitive against the top teams.
And we can talk about Tassie footy without touching on what happened at Belgrave yesterday with the North Melbourne's first home game in Hobart with a big win over the Giants.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, on the way to the ground, I was sort of driving through the city, stopped in Salamanca and saw all the North Melbourne supporters out having breakfast, jumping on the buses, heading across. Got over to Belgrave about 10:30. They're already a solid crowd of fans outside the gates waiting, and that was terrific to see. Good to see Belgrave reasonably full. The crowd wasn't quite what we thought. The game itself, of course, was lacking, well, quite a bit. We'll be hoping for more than that. But look, it was really exciting. I mean, first game AFL match in Hobart for about 20 years. So plenty more to come.
Probably the AFL didn't do any favours, the Giants on Easter Sunday, but this is all a good preview for what should be a great game against West Coast, who could be one of the premiership favourites by about, I think it's July 7 when the next game's down here.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the call on the weekend. David Parkin, who knows a thing or two about footy, was saying that by the time that game rolls around, we could be talking about West Coast as the premiership favourites. I mean, they've been super impressive early in the season. North Melbourne have been reasonably competitive as well. I mean, hard to gauge on yesterday, but for the first time, I reckon we've got some exciting youngsters coming through for North Melbourne. I mean, we always talk about Boomer Harvey contributes, and Petrie's been around for a while, but Ryan Bastonak's game, again, opposition hard to read, but what do you have, 43 possessions and a couple of goals? It's pretty fair effort.
Yep. Well, Damian, thanks very much. We can see why you get paid the big bucks at the ABC. Thanks for joining us, and remember, for all your TSL stories, pick up your copy at the Mercury or go to the Mercury online.